أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Verse number 204. ومن الناس من يعجبك قوله في الحياة الدنيا ويشهد الله على ما في قلبه وهو ألد الخصام. Among the people is he whose talk about worldly life impresses you, and he holds Allah witness to what is in his heart, though he is the staunchest of enemies. This verse and the following verses give us another typology of people. If you remember, previously we had one typology, and that was وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا. Some people, when they are in Hajj, they only ask about worldly things. That were the mushrikun, of course, who did not believe in Akhirah at all. And some of them say, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. Now, eventually, this attitude in each of them would lead to certain qualities that they may have in their social interaction. And this is these verses are giving those qualities. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ, among the people, is he whose talk about worldly life impresses you. These are the people who say, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا. They don't want anything about Akhirah, only they focus on dunya. And when they talk about dunya, of course, it's very impressive. Now, before going into the general description of the verse, there is a cause of revelation for this verse mentioned, or a person mentioned as the instance of this quality by most of the exegetes, and in many riwayat. It is said that this man was Akhnas ibn Shaykh. He was one of the very well-to-do people of Mecca, a man equal to Abu Jahl and Abu Sufyan, but a man who spoke very beautifully and eloquently. When he spoke, you just wanted to listen to him. And there are other references to him in the Quran as well, like, for example, some people say, وَيْلٌ لَكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ الَّذِي جَمَعَ مَالًا وَعَدَّدَهُ, has actually been revealed in reference to Akhnas ibn Shaykh. He's called Akhnas because he was the head of Banu Zuhra, and he was leading an army in the Battle of Badr from Mecca to Badr to protect the caravan of Abu Sufyan, in whose caravan there were properties of all tribes, and many property belonging to Banu Zuhra as well. So when he was leading the army, then they heard that Abu Sufyan has fled and the caravan is safe. He was the person who said, we don't need to go and fight anymore. Why should we lose our lives? So he brought those 300 men back from Badr to Mecca. And that's why he was called Akhnas, the fleeing person. Now, anyhow, this Akhnas ibn Shaykh came to the Prophet, to Medina, and he talked to him very beautifully. I believe in God. I always have believed in God. My heart is a witness. Allah is a witness in what is in my heart. And Prophet actually accepted his words because he spoke very nicely. He spoke about the people, how they should be treated, how they should be connected to Allah, and all these things. And then when he went out, of course, all these was to appease the Prophet. When he went out of Medina, he came across some Muslims in one of the villages. He killed all their livestock and burnt their farms. يُهْلِكُ الْحَرْثَ وَالنَّسْلِ. And this became an instance of, he became an instance of this verse. Now, regardless of whether this is correct or not, most probably is correct because most of exegetes and most of riwayat have mentioned it, but the verse is very general. Usually the Quran picks one example of a person at the time of the Prophet and then gives a general ruling or gives general qualities of people based on that very person. So let's see what is the general meaning of this. Put aside Akhnas ibn Shurayh and whatever he did. It says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. His word about worldly life impresses you. Certainly, the Prophet wasn't impressed about money, wealth, such things. We know that. It's impossible that someone could impress Prophet by talking about wealth and money and glory and power. No. Apparently, what impressed the prophets, if this is addressed to the Prophet, now sometimes we know that these addresses are general to everyone. But what would impress the Prophet, peace be on him, was talking about well-being of people, how we have to look after them, how am I concerned about the poor, how am I concerned about wars, bloodshed, everyone should live a good life, everyone should have a right to such and such. And nowadays, of course, we hear about human rights, children's rights, everything should be rosy, and especially politicians talk like that, isn't it? Because I believe that kings in the past were better than our presidents who are chosen by elections, because kings in the past, they just said what were there in hearts. They glorified themselves. We are the people who have the right to rule. But nowadays, politicians cannot say that, isn't it? They all have to talk about people, people's right, people's comfort, so that they get vote. Now, of course, not every politician is like that, but sometimes we see people, they talk very eloquently about such things. But when it comes to practice, of course, their practice is very different. When it comes to action, their action is very different. In terms of words, everyone is loving, has love for people, is kind, is generous, but when it comes to action, it is not the case. And these are the people who think only about this world, not about the other world. They don't talk about power, money, such things, because everyone is repelled by that. What they talk about and what fascinates people is the way they talk about other people, helping them. We have to look after them. We get worried when people don't have, for example, anything to eat. And then when it comes the time when they have to help, of course, they act very differently. So, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. About the well-being of this life. Of course, certainly, as I said, about other people. And وَيُشْهِدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا فِي قَلْبِهِ. And he would take as a witness Allah regarding what is in his heart. Now, some people, some exegetes have said that مَنْ يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا refers to people who confess faith, but they don't have faith. So, Akhnas came to the Prophet and said that I have faith, I always believed in you, but of course he did not believe. However, this is not قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. It should be something not regarding faith. It should be something regarding to matters which belong to this world, but of course the Prophet was concerned about them as well, like other people, like the well-being of people. So, مَنْ يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَيُشْهِدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا فِي قَلْبِهِ. And he would take Allah as a witness for what is in his heart. It means that they talk about worldly matters and then they mix and mingle it with God and faith and other things, that Allah is a witness. وَهُوَ أَلَدُّ الْخِصَامِ. And some of people, of course, مِنَ النَّاسِ, some of people are like that. They are the staunchest of enemies of people, of faith, of everyone. وَإِذَا تَوَلَّى سَعَى فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيُفْسِدَ فِيهَا وَيُهْلِكَ الْحَرْثَ وَالنَّسْلَ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْفَسَادَ. And if he were to wield authority, he would try to cause corruption in the land and to ruin the crop and the stock. And Allah does not like corruption. Now, tawalla has been given two meanings by exegetes, because tawalla means taking walaya, that's rulership, having authority. And tawalla means to turn away. Both of them are the meanings of tawalla. Now, if we take the case of Akhnas ibn Shurayq, because when he was with the Prophet, he talked about people, their well-being and such things, but when he turned away and went out of Medina, he burnt those farms and killed those livestock of Muslims, of course, because he had help. I mean, he didn't do it alone. He had people with him. They did it. So if we take the story to be referring to Akhnas ibn Shurayq, means when he turned away from you. As long as he's with you, as long as he talks with you, talks very nicely. But when he goes away and starts practicing life the way he is, وَإِذَا تَوَلَّى سَعَى فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيُفْسِدَ فِيهَا. He would try to cause corruption in the land. Now, if we take this generally as tawalla means taking authority. If authority is given to them, these people who speak very nicely, if they are in charge. And this is a very interesting matter because usually all of us, when we don't have authority, we speak very nicely. We want everything to be rosy. This should be like that. Everyone should have good living, good house. But when we take authority, instead of doing what we have said before, we try to do otherwise, to create corruption. وَإِذَا تَوَلَّى سَعَى فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيُفْسِدَ فِيهَا. And what is this fasad, corruption? Corruption sometimes refers to corruption of belief and faith, and sometimes refers to corruption about the livelihood of people. يُهْلِكَ الْحَرْثَ وَالنَّسْلَ. The corruption is ruins the crop and the stock. It means ruins the livelihood of the people. If we take it very specific about Akhnas ibn Shurayq, that's very clear. If we take it generally, which is of course general, it means that when they have authority, they destroy the livelihood of people either by usurping it or by wasting it and doing such things. وَإِذَا تَوَلَّى سَعَى فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيُفْسِدَ فِيهَا وَيُهْلِكَ الْحَرْثَ وَالنَّسْلَ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْفَسَادَ. And of course, Allah doesn't like corruption. Now, what's the meaning of Allah yuhib or la yuhib? Again, we have discussed such feelings about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We said that these feelings, like for example, generosity, kindness, mercy, it doesn't have exactly the same features as is in the human being. For example, mercy in human being has some sort of preludes. For example, you see something, you feel pity, you are motivated, you are aroused, and then you try to help. When we talk about mercy with regards to Allah, we don't have all those preliminary things. There is no pity, there is no moving, because Allah cannot be moved by His creation. No incentive can be given to Allah by His creation. So it only means that He gives. When merciful means that He forgives, He covers, that's all. There's nothing else there. Now when we talk about love with regards to Allah, Allah loves or Allah doesn't love, it doesn't mean that there's a feeling in the heart which attaches Allah to something and preoccupies him with that thought, the way love acts in human being. What is the outcome of love is total care, is giving the beloved whatever we have, is all the time thinking about the beloved, is all the time trying to look after the beloved. This is the outcome of love. Now, for Allah, only the outcome is there. There is no such things as go before. So it means that when Allah loves, it means He blesses. It means He takes care of something. This is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah doesn't love, it means that He withdraws the blessing. It doesn't give barakah to it. Barakah doesn't come from Allah to something that He does not love, so to speak, as we speak in our language. And therefore, when we want to explain this verse, Wallahu la, this sentence, Wallahu la yuhibbul fasad, it means that Allah takes barakah away from corruption. He never blesses it. And that means corruption is always dwindling. It always goes away. And people fight against it. It creates a situation where there is no mercy of God in it. There is no rahmah of God in it. And that's why, of course, what we see generally when corruption happens in any meaning, the withdrawal of blessing of Allah from it, that means Allah doesn't like that. And when we talk about mu'mineen and kafirin as well, for example, Wallahu la yuhibbul kafirin, Allah doesn't like kafirin, it means that His blessings wouldn't go towards them. That's the only meaning. And when He says Allah, Wallahu yuhibbul muttaqin, or yuhibbul mutatahhirin, yuhibbul tawwabin, means His blessings go towards them. Now, with regards to fasad and corruption, whether it's individually or socially, when this happens, Allah withdraws the mercy and rahmah and barakah from that person or that society. This is the meaning of la yuhib. So if fasad happens, then of course we are in trouble because Allah takes away His blessings and we are left to ourselves. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُ اتَّقِ اللَّهِ أَخَذَتْهُ الْعِزَّةُ بِالْإِثْمِ فَحَسْبُهُ جَهَنَّمْ وَلَبِئْسَ الْمَهَادُ. And when he is told, be wary of Allah, conceit seizes him sinfully, so let hell suffice him, and it is surely an evil resting place. Now, أخذته العزة بالإثم may have two meanings, and exegetes have discussed this in details, and some have preferred one meaning over the other. أخذته العزة بالإثم. Izzah is conceit, or the feeling of dignity, false dignity, and ithm is sin. Now, the meaning may be two ways. The conceit leads him to sin and sinfulness, or his sins that he has already committed leads him to conceit and pride and doesn't listen to anyone. Now, Allama Tabatabai, as it is his, of course, his habit usually in these cases, that usually he says the great evils in us are actually produced by our smaller sins. Sins produce in us arrogance, sins produce in us conceit, sins produce in us qualities which lead to great corruption. He says this means, and then he argues for that, brings lots of arguments, that the sins that he has committed before would lead him to such a pride that they don't want to listen at all to what you say. You say, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّقِ اللَّهِ, when they are told that fear God, they say, why should I fear God? I haven't done nothing. It's actually Allah should fears me because of what He has done to me up till now, and I am He is so much indebted to me. This is because sins lead a person towards self-conceit and arrogance. Now the others say, the other exegetes say no, because he was a man of arrogance and pride and self-conceit. When he is told ittaqillah, his quality of arrogance leads him to more corruption and more sins. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُ اتَّقِ اللَّهِ أَخَذَتْهُ الْعِزَّةُ بِالْإِثْمِ. Now, what Allah is going to do with these people? Now, the first punishment is that if we take the explanation of Allama Tabatabai, the first punishment is that his sins will lead them to izzah, self-conceitedness, wrong pride, and that is a punishment for him, because then he cannot understand anything about God, no admonition would go into his heart. This is first punishment. But is Allah going to stop him? Well, sometimes He may, but this is not the general rule. Allah is not meant to stop people from doing things in this world. That's why He says, فَحَسْبُهُ جَهَنَّمْ. Don't think that we are not doing anything about it. Don't think that we have let them loose to do whatever they want. We are negligent of them. No, this is the nature of this life. It should be like that. Allah should leave people to do whatever they want. But one day he would go to Jahannam. And Jahannam is enough as a punishment for him. Suffices as a punishment. فَحَسْبُهُ جَهَنَّمْ وَلَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادِ. Mihad is a resting place from mahd, which is the cradle, somewhere that you have to lay to feel comfortable. But of course you do not feel comfortable in hell. It is a very bad place of repose and bad resting place. In a sense, what Allah says here is that many people do corruption. You advise them, you preach, you instruct, you remind them of Allah. They do not take heed and they continue their corruption. And people think that Allah is negligent, Allah has left them, or Allah is blessing them actually. Many people say that, look at these people who do all these mischiefs, they have all wealth of the world. And the mindset is that because they have wealth, that means Allah is on their side. While of course Allah says, no. What comes after Jahannam is a sufficient punishment for them. Now, the opposite of these people, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ رَؤُوفٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. Now, you remember, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا. That was the outcome of that was the person who أخذته العزة بالاسم. ومن الناس من يقول ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة. These are the people who sell their souls to Allah to buy His pleasure. This yashri, selling for a price, selling for a price. In return, you will receive, by selling your soul, you receive the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. These are not the people who talk much. These are not the people who, sometimes these people cannot even express themselves, as some people can talk very eloquently. However, what is in their soul, what is in their heart, is that they just want to do things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. And among the people is he who sells his soul seeking the pleasure of Allah. It is a sort of purchase, bargain. You give your soul, and this of course applies to all the mujahideen, all the people who work selflessly for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are the ones who give their soul to receive the pleasure of Allah. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ رَؤُوفٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. Now about وَاللَّهُ رَؤُوفٌ بِالْعِبَادِ I talk later, but about this وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ, like the previous one who people say, exegetes say it refers to Akhnas ibn Shurayq. Here people have given different names who were actually such people at the time of the Prophet. Now, the first thing which is mentioned in Shia and Sunni books, and especially the Shia books have focused on that and emphasized it, is that this verse was revealed with regards to Ali ibn Abi Talib when he slept in Prophet's bed on the night of migration. Actually, he said, okay, I give my soul, I give my life for the safety of the Prophet. This is the best example of selling one's life, selling one's soul to Allah and receiving His pleasure. There are numerous narrations from the companions and from the Tabi'un in this regard. As-Suddi reports from Abdullah ibn Abbas, قال نزلت هذه الآية في علي بن أبي طالب حين حرب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن المشركين إلى الغار. This refers to Imam Ali alayhi salam when the Prophet escaped the mushrikun, taking refuge in the cave. So Ali slept in his bed, and نزلت الآية بين مكة والمدينة. The ayah was revealed when the Prophet was actually between Mecca and Medina, because that was the moment when Imam Ali alayhi salam slept in his bed. Now, Tabrasi says that there is another hadith in this regard which says أنه لما نام علي فراشه قام جبرائيل عند رأسه وميكائيل عند رجليه وجبرائيل ينادي بخ بخ من مثلك يا ابن أبي طالب يباهي الله بك الملائكة. When he was sleeping in Prophet's bed, sacrificing himself, it was a very dangerous situation because he had put the blanket on his head. No one realized who he was. The mushrikun would just burst into the house at any time and do not take the cover off. I mean, they could kill him. So it was very dangerous. It was only a miracle of Allah that some of them tried to uncover the face. Otherwise, they would have killed him. So he was expecting death at any moment. Sleeping under the blanket, expecting death at any moment. It is reported that at that time, when he was expecting death and waiting for death, that the angel Jibreel and Mikael descended. Jibreel sat beside his head and Mikael sat beside his feet. And Jibreel was saying, how good it is for you, Ya Ali. Who is like you? Allah is boasting to angels about what he has created, so to speak. A soul like this, Allah is boasting. Now, there are other narrations. Ikrama says that it was revealed in Abu Dhar and in Suhaib, because Abu Dhar, when he wanted to believe, his people in Banu Ghifar, they imprisoned him. They didn't let him to go to Mecca, and he escaped and went to Mecca. And after that, Prophet told him, go back to your people and preach them. When he went there, they didn't want to listen to him. In fact, he sold himself, but this is not selling one's life. Or Suhaib, for example, when he wanted to migrate, he was a very rich man. People of Mecca said that we do not let you to go with your wealth, because you have gained your wealth here amongst us, and now you want to take it to Medina. And he said, take all my wealth and I go. And he went without anything, and he became one of the Ashab al-Suffah, just sleeping beside the mosque, because he was absolutely poor in Medina. They said this is about these people. However, of course, it doesn't fit very well. What fits very well is the occasion of a night of migration. And of course, generally, it is about anyone who does something selflessly for Allah. And we have a report from Imam Ali alayhi salam and from Ibn Abbas, says, الرجل الذي يقتل على الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. A person who's killed because of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar is one who sells his life to Allah, receiving his pleasure in place of it. So the verse is very general, like the previous verses, but there has been some sort of a special occasion in which it was revealed, and I think the most reasonable is about the night of migration, especially if this is revealed between Mecca and Medina. Wallahu ra'ufun bil ibad. Now, what does this mean? Because it says a group of people sell their lives to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, this is the meaning of the sentence, but Wallahu ra'ufun bil ibad. Allah is most kind to his servants. One may say that most kind to his servants means that, yes, because these people have sacrificed themselves, Allah looks after them, Allah blesses them. But apparently, what fits best in this context is what Allama Tabatabai rahmatullah alayhi says. He says that, look at the previous verse. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. There are people who absolutely do corruption on this earth. They don't care about anyone, they don't care about anything. And Allah says, Hasbuhu Jahannam, I'm not going to stop them in this world. They do it. Now we say, Ya Allah, so what should people do? What should they do? What is their help? What is their shield against these people? The shield are the other group of people who sell their lives to seek the pleasure of Allah, and Allah is kind to His people, wouldn't leave them like that to be prey of corrupt people only. No, Allah has two types of servants, and then there are a group of people who live in the middle, the ordinary people, but there is one group whose main goal and main performance in this world is corruption, and there's another group whose main goal is to oppose that corruption, to give their life for it. And in this way, Allah has showed His kindness to people, that hasn't left them to be prey of corrupt people, and there are people who always opposes them. And this meaning has been mentioned in other places in the Quran. For example, وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسَ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ لَهُدِّمَتْ صَوَامِعُ وَبِيَعٌ وَمَسَاجِدُ وَصَلَوَاتٌ يُذْكَرُ فِيهَا اسْمُ اللَّهِ كَثِيرًا. If it was not the case that Allah repels some people by others, then all places of worship would have been destroyed, because some people are always after corruption. And some people are always after sacrificing themselves for faith, sacrificing for them for people. And these two groups always are always in opposition with each other. And this is the way Allah has shown His kindness to people. Wallahu ra'ufun bil ibad. Now the following verse is a very interesting one, which follows this one. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udkhulu fis-silmi kaffatan wa la tattabi'u khutuwat ash-shaytan innahu lakum aduwwun mubin. Oh, you have faith, enter into submission. Now, enter into submission, kaffatan. This kaffatan either is an adverb for submission or an adverb for udkhulu. If we take it at adverb for udkhulu, means altogether enter into faith, into Islam. If we take it as an adverb for sal, means enter into Islam totally and entirely, wholeheartedly. This is something that we have to discuss, inshallah, in our next session. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin.
Thank you very much indeed, Shaykh. Very interesting today. So we've got about 15 minutes to take up any questions and clarify any matters. Any brothers or sisters? Any brother?
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. Thank you so much. It seems very clear until we get to 207, and it says وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِ. So this is selling of the soul. So can I be so prudent as to say sacrifice? Because that fits better, doesn't it?
Selling one's life, in a sense, yes, sacrifice.
So you would say that sacrifice is replaceable with the wedding.
Of course, the expression used is stronger than sacrifice, because sacrifice means you do it for nothing, isn't it? You do it. Allah says this doesn't go as something which you just give your life for nothing. You buy the pleasure of Allah. So just it gives we can use sacrifice, but Allah gives the impression of a sort of selling and buying. You sell your life, you buy pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In a sense, Allah says your sacrifices wouldn't go without any response by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Because if I put myself in the shoes of Imam Ali just for a minute, and I'm thinking, whatever I do is for Allah. So life is not important anymore.
Yeah, and Allah, of course, tells you, although you give it freely to me, but
exactly.
I don't take it freely.
Okay. So he's saying the reward is
the reward is pleasure of Allah.
So just for a minute, I'm now thinking about somebody who has sacrificed his life either for his or her child, or for his religion, or for his nation, you know, because sometimes wars happen and then people are carried into risking or sacrificing their lives for the reason of either its religion or country or anything else. Is that very far-fetched from this?
It's not far-fetched. Actually, this is a human quality. The sense of sacrifice is a human quality. I mean, you sacrifice for many things. And especially, for example, when war breaks out among nations, people are very, very much willing to go and sacrifice their lives for their country, for their flag, or whatever. It is a human quality. But these human qualities, we know that the Quran tries to somehow direct all these human qualities to one point, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That if you want to make sacrifice, do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to give your life, do it for the sake of Allah, for the faith. Because love, for example, is something which is among all human beings. But if you want to love, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. Your love should be focused to Allah subhanahu. And this is the meaning of Hanif. Ibrahim was Hanif. Everything was focused towards one point. So we cannot say that every sacrifice has a reward. It's a human quality. I mean, people make sacrifices depending on what they want to achieve, whatever. Okay, they achieve it. But the sacrifice which is directed towards Hanifiyya is important. That's the important thing.
Thank you. Any sisters?
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. You know the ayah in the Quran that says that when you quarrel, Allah weakens your heart in Surah Anfal. So is that the reward? That's the mercy Allah takes away from you, or is quarreling a sin? Because He takes the power away from your heart when you quarrel.
It takes the power from the community when you quarrel. It takes the power from, isn't it? So Allah doesn't like it. The blessing is taken away. Unity is a blessing, brings blessings of Allah, actually. It attracts the blessing because Allah likes it. And quarreling just makes the blessings of Allah away from the community.
Thank you. Any brothers? Shaykh, when we talk about increasing and decreasing of blessings, what I understood is that if Allah removes the blessings from somebody, then the effect of that will be seen on the day of judgment, or a kind of more punishment or something like that, what I understood. Is that right?
Sorry, can you just say it again?
So if Allah, when we discuss about the increasing or decreasing of blessings, if Allah removes the blessings from somebody, although we may not see the effect of this in the world, but the effect of it will be seen.
Usually blessings are taken away in a way that people don't realize it. Because taking away blessings doesn't mean that Allah takes away wealth or takes away power or things like that. Some sort of problems come into the life because Allah has taken His attention away. Now, this may be into individual and people. And of course, the ultimate result of it, the ultimate justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would appear on the day of judgment, in the day of judgment, would appear in hell or in paradise.
I see. So it means that if you ask Allah to remove His blessings on somebody continuously, so that also will affect in this world as well.
In this world, you see, Iman would be taken away from their hearts. What calamity more than that we want? And there is a very interesting hadith I was reading the other day. The hadith was that about Ajal. Ajal means the appointed time for death. It's a very strange hadith. It says that Allah has not appointed any specific time for the death of a believer. And the believer can live as long as they like. Allah doesn't take them. as long as they like to live. As long as they like to live, we see many believers towards the old age, they say we want to go, isn't it? But as long as a believer likes to live, Allah leave them, doesn't want to take them reluctantly. Unless if something happens which their faith is endangered, then Allah takes them even reluctantly, even if they don't like. As a very strange hadith. Now, the Rawi of this hadith says that it was very strange. I went and asked some other person, I don't remember his name now, some other person, that is this a correct hadith that Allah has not appointed a time, a specific time for mu'min's life? They can live as long as they like to live. And he wouldn't take them reluctantly. And he said, let me mention a strange hadith from Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam. And that was that the موت العباد بالذنوب أكثر من موتهم بالآجال وحياتهم, something like this, وحياتهم بالإحسان أكثر من حياتهم بالأعمار. People die because of sins more than because of their appointed time. For example, Allah has appointed about 80 years that I should live, but I sin continuously, I die at the age of 40. The blessing is taken away. Or Allah has appointed 60 years for me, but I'm a good person, I always do ihsan to my relatives, to people, and Allah prolongs that for another, say for example, 40 years, I live 100 years. Now, he mentions this, and this is a hadith which is mentioned by almost all A'imah, that you live by ihsan more than you live by your appointed time. Rarely people die because of their appointed times. People die either earlier because of their sins, or after that because of their ihsan. And then he wants to explain that hadith, that how is it possible that Allah would not take a believer as long as they like to live in this world? Because as long as they do ihsan, their lives are prolonged. Unless if they say, Ya Allah, enough, please take me, I'm tired of this world, then Allah will take them.
Okay, thanks. Any sisters, any brothers? Any sisters or brothers? Yeah.
So because you are true believers, never say Allah is enough, because He would take you quickly.
Shaykh, you were mentioning that sometimes whatever we say and whatever we feel, it doesn't actualize until we have power or authority, and usually we don't have that, so it's just words. I just wanted to share something Sayyid Muhammad Baqarah al-Sadr. He was addressing a group of ulama, and he said to them that none of you should think that you are better than Harun Rashid until Allah gives you what He gave Harun Rashid.
Very good, very nice. Thank you. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Thank you. Any sisters or brothers? Anybody? No? It seems probably more clear at this time. Anybody? No? Shaykh Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad Sallallahu. Thank you.